My daughter brought it straight to me and said, Mom, I know you don't like this, so I wanted to show you.
The book King's daughter brought home is part of the Japanese graphic novel series Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid. The story involves a dragon which transforms into a young human woman in a maid outfit. This particular story features drawings of the Dragon Maid exposing most of her breasts.
You can't make this stuff up. And speaking of out there stuff, the subject of this news story, Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid, is a show that can scare off the faint of heart from just a glimpse at the title. If this happened to you, then we're like two peas in a pod. Because to this day, I wish I could have gone my whole life without seeing the words dragon and maid in the same sentence. I realize I'm painting a very negative picture here, so let's bring this back a bit. I find that there's a lot to love and a lot to hate with Dragon Maid. In fact, it's such an even split that out of all the KyoAni shows I've yet to talk about, I moved this one up to the front of the queue because of how intriguing I found my own perspective on it to be, and that is probably the most pretentious thing I've said on this channel. Oh well, a healthy dose of stupid ought to balance that out. As we'll see, Mr. Kawasaki's Lizard Butler stretches itself across a good handful of genres, but at its core, it's a comedy show. And credit where credit is due, there are a lot of good jokes in here. Even just the premise of an office worker walking off into the forest in a drunken stupor and befriending a dragon who falls madly in love with her is pretty funny. Toru and all her dragon friends have their fair share of fish out of water comedic scenarios, which I've always been a sucker for. My favorite is this bit where Kana tells everyone that she was challenged to a dodgeball duel, and Toru and Fafnir, with no hesitation, say this. Okay, do whatever you want, man, but before you do, can you get them all to click the link in the description and make a pledge to the Patreon? I just realized how messed up what I'm saying is. There's this scene where Toru and Kana fail to understand simple magic tricks, so Toru vows to beat humanity at their own game. It then cuts to everyone watching TV, making us think that the show moved on from the joke, but then this happens. I love it when jokes genuinely catch me off guard. One of my favorite moments of the entire show is this small gag in season 2 where Toru gets disappointed with Elma's crummy maid outfit design. She tells her to go play Monopoly with the kids in the other room while the adults continue their work. And this is about where you'd expect a snappy retort that devolves into an argument, but no, it just cuts to a shot of Elma entering the other room to play with everyone. Speaking of Elma, I also love how the bitter history between her and Toru is played for laughs. I always crack up at the scene where Toru is sent on the prowl to look for a thief, and then it just cuts to her punching Elma in the face and accusing her of the crime. There's also a good handful of so dumb it's funny jokes, stuff that makes fart.mp3 look like Mozart, but damn it, I can't help but love them. What I don't love, however, is the other half of the jokes in this show. See, Dragon Maid really likes to use risque imagery for comedic effect.
This whole chapter right here talks about how enlarged her breasts are and what the issues are with them.
To their credit, they made one or two of these jokes work by playing off of the personalities of the characters involved, but I think problems crop up when the punchline is just, yeah, we really put this in our show. The low-hanging fruit here is obviously anything that has to do with Lukoa and Saikawa. Hear ye, this stupid pervert girl is making a Hagos as she finds herself in compromising positions with another child. God, the fact that this is so messed up has me in hysterics right now. Oh, what's that? Police sirens? But I'm too busy laughing my ass off to go to jail. Now, these scenes would get maybe a modicum of sympathy from me if they had some kind of point. Like, what if Lukoa harassing this kid day in and day out was an important part of his character arc? I don't blame you if you're laughing at me right now for saying that, but if the best manga ever written has anything to say about it, obscene elements can work wonders for a narrative when handled properly. But no, all I could glean from these scenes was cheap shock value. And it's not like there are just 2 or 3 instances of this happening. Some characters exclusively deliver jokes like this, and they're some of my least favorites in the entire medium. But I'll lock them back up in the basement for a bit because I'd much rather talk about the characters I like first. Toru is an all-around fun character. She's cheerful, energetic, and hardworking with that perfect blend of flaws like her hot temper, superiority complex to humans, and her overkill ways of expressing affection that often cause nothing but trouble. She's likable without being some ideal figure, just as most protagonists should be, and if I can just say, her voice is quite lovely.
心配してくれてるんですね。不審者を。
Kobayashi has a refreshing perspective we rarely see from anime, that being somebody older than 15. She's the level-headed straight man to the antics of the dragons, a tried and true dynamic, but I found her personality to be far more interesting than the role she plays in the show. She has this mid-20s wisdom to her that allows her to accurately read situations, uncovering motives and insecurities in the people she interacts with. She can adjust her demeanor to fit a somber mood and will listen to what others have to say without getting embarrassed or trying to play it off. She doesn't have all the answers, and of course there are several instances where she understandably loses her cool, but that just makes her a more convincing character, and the relationship she fosters with Toru is genuinely heartwarming. Both of them find themselves isolated from their peers for their own reasons. When Toru throws herself into Kobayashi's life after she accidentally invites her into it, this begins as one of those I guess I can tolerate this type situations. But this outlook slowly crumbles as Kobayashi comes to realize how much Toru in the company of the other dragons changed her. There is no overt, oh my god, I really love these guys moment. It's in offhand comments like Kobayashi's co-worker telling her she seems to be smiling a lot more lately. It's in the way she tries to accommodate Toru's needs like a true friend, coming clean about the personal reasons why she behaves the way she does when Toru is upset with her. And it's in the way she defends her relationship with dragons to naysayers. I especially love the ending of season 1 where she has to live without Toru for a good handful of days. Her demeanor dampens, her home becomes messier, and she finds herself unable to do things she used to be able to do. The best part is, this same wonderful writing spreads to Toru, albeit to a lesser extent because of how affectionate she is towards Kobayashi right out the gate. Elma is a by-the-book rules follower type dragon from the Harmony faction, in opposition to Toru's Chaos faction. They're great foils for each other, and I absolutely adore the way their relationship gets fleshed out in season 2, especially when they evolve from bitter hostility to mutual respect. I seem to have this narrative kink for characters who don't get along well being nice to each other, so the show gets a lot of points from me there. There's no excuse for how little screen time Elma got in season 1 though. And of course, we have the actual best character in the show, Fafnir. He's the only character who's consistently hilarious to me. He's voiced by Jotaro, and he calls out Lukoa for being the horrible character that she is. I rest my case. All hail Faf-kun.
演出のファフニールだ。俺が演出になった以上、ぬるい芝居は許さん。
Alright, with that being said, Kana, Lukoa, and Saikawa. I have this lengthy statement here that I wrote up to describe how I feel about you all, and I hope you'll listen carefully because I spent a lot of time crafting it. And please, excuse how formal it is. I just wanted to be respectful to you all despite our disagreements. Fuck you. Lukoa, you should learn that there's more to comedy than just haha boobs and stop wasting my time. Saikawa, controversial take here, but I don't think a character as young as you who does half the things you do should exist. And Kana, oh how I just love how manufactured you are. Your monotone voice, your childlike behavior, your sudden outbursts and over-exaggerated movements. If there was an AI that generated cute characters designed to cheaply win over an audience, you'd be the first thing it made next to all those one-off Disney sidekicks that only exist to sell toys. I don't think she offers the show anything of substance that Toru doesn't handle better herself, be it fulfilling Kobayashi's desire for family, providing an interesting perspective on the relationship between dragons and humans, or just, you know, being funny. And speaking of things feeling manufactured, there is one aspect of this show that rubbed me the wrong way that I could never pinpoint until I rewatched it. Before I saw Dragon Maid for the first time, I remember reading a slew of reviews claiming that this show was a return to the old Kyoto animation and feels like it aired back in 2007. Looking back at what KyoAni was up to then, I was met with a handful of shows that seemed to have nothing to do with Dragon Maid. But after re-experiencing the drunk personalities of Kobayashi and her work friend, their frequent visits to Kamaket, and the wacky self-aware parentheses titles, it hit me. This is a show that's heavily entrenched in otaku culture, much like the Haruhi's, Lucky Stars, and to some extent clan ads gods of old. I often find this style of writing to be pandering and lazy, but before I get to Dragon Maid, let me explain why these three get a pass. In Haruhi, these references are either shoved in the background or are used to highlight how much of a dumbass Haruhi is.
It's a rule that in stories with strange things going on, you need to have one moe character. Someone with glasses or in a maid costume or anything fetishy. It's essential.
Lucky Star works because the show revolves around its connection to the culture. And even if you don't understand it like I did, you can feel the passion the characters and, by extent, the writers have for this stuff. A lot of Clannad's characters fall into stereotypical anime archetypes, something I'd probably roll my eyes at if I saw it for the first time today. But their exceptional characterization through both serious and humorous encounters pushes them far past lazy tropes in my eyes. In Dragon Maid, though, roughly half the show is dedicated to one-off gags that shove anime in your face, hoping for a hashtag relatable response from the audience.
こんなに大きくて川で水浴びしてたのよね、カンナさん。最高はあれ CG。
There is no way in hell you know what CGI is, you android. Even characters I really like, such as Toru, fall victim to the how to make a cute anime girl flowchart from time to time. And upon making the connection between Dragon Maid and KyoAni's older work, an issue with the show's other leading genre cropped up. See, slice of life is pretty dang rad, but when Maid Dragon does it, I get kind of sad. Not because it's all that bad, but because they steal a lot from Dad. Unsubscribe. One thing I noticed while rewatching is that a lot of the scenarios the characters find themselves in look kind of familiar. Toru getting a great curse at a shrine and the other characters saying they've never seen someone get that before. Going to Comiket, summer festivals, school sports days. I'm not going to pretend like all the stuff in this show is a retread, that's far from true. But you can't deny that they revisit a lot of locales and activities. That's not even a bad thing if you're normal, but for me, I couldn't stop my mind from comparing these moments to the ones from KyoAni's older shows. And let's see here, we have a group of characters who I'm incredibly invested in versus a group of characters who I hate half of and couldn't really get into their drama. Yeah, there's a clear winner there by default, and while it's kind of an unfair gripe to have, it's how I felt regardless. Speaking of not getting pulled into Dragon Maid's drama, I took issue with how episodic the character arcs felt in this show. Most of the conflicts were usually resolved within the episode they were presented, so it felt like every episode we'd take a spin on the depression wheel to see who's going to be sad this week. I also think towards the end of season 2, the whole can dragons really live with humans thing had more than run its course. And with that, me complaining has run its course, because now I'm going to talk about how fucking gorgeous this show is. No exaggeration here, I think Dragon Maid has some of the most well-animated scenes in the history of animation. The colors, the detail, the impacts, the cinematography. I could break down a single fight scene from season 2 for like 15 minutes if I wanted to. And while season 1 looks really good, all this praise is mostly directed towards season 2. But before I gush more, some context. This was the first Kyoto Animation show to come out after the tragic arson attack in 2019, which took the lives of 36 staff members, including the director of Dragon Maid, Yasuhiro Takemoto. With this in mind, the announcement of season 2 came to the shock and joy of anyone who's ever followed this studio. There were no expectations. Regardless of what we were given, it was our duty to watch and support it every week. Little did any of us know, though, that not only would KyoAni come back with a show that lives up to the astronomically high bar for quality they've been setting for the past 2 decades, but they'd actually surpass it and set a new standard for animation yet again. The continuity of putting Toru in the background of several shots as she tailed Kana to New York, the tenderness of every expression that almost makes you forget that you're watching an animated show, and the shots that were thrown in only because these legends wanted to challenge themselves. Like, look at this shot with the water, somebody had to draw that. Animation aside, I found the writing to improve from season 1 too. The backstory to Elma and Toru was great. Elma actually got screen time, and Ilulu was a decent enough addition to the cast in my opinion. That signature Kyoto Animation charm flows through the veins of every episode, and nowhere is that more apparent than with the soundtrack. The openings of both seasons are iconic. I'm sure you've seen this shot of everyone spinning around on the internet before, and season 2 has this wonderfully corny rap song. They get you excited to watch the show, and the OST itself is no slouch either. If I had to pinpoint one track that summarizes how much love went into this show, I'd have to pick this one. Sayonara is a somber yet hopeful piece that offers this mood of self-reflectance to the characters and the viewer. It matches the warm and inviting nature of the Kobayashi household. It envelops the listener and reassures them that this is a safe place. Visions of Dragon Maid's themes in their purest forms dance throughout my mind while I listen to this song. The acceptance of those different from you, the importance of finding loved ones, and the necessity to enjoy your life to the fullest because nothing lasts forever. This will probably sound really stupid, but I envision this as a song that Toru would compose 100 or so years after the events of Dragon Maid. Kobayashi is long gone, and this sounds a little like her way of remembering and honoring the time they spent together. For a track whose passion can be felt for every second it's playing, it just feels like a good interpretation to me. At the end of the day, I can't say that I ever regretted watching a second of Dragon Maid, and it has my gratitude for being such a vital creative outlet for so many at KyoAni post-2019. Yeah, I think it kind of sucks, but I also think it's pretty cool at the same time, which hey, that alone makes it more than worth remembering, right? Special thanks to Silent Secondary and the rest of my wonderful patrons.